The call came on a Tuesday morning at 7:43 a.m. I was sitting in my home office, coffee still steaming beside my laptop, reviewing quarterly financial reports for my consulting firm. 23 years in corporate finance had taught me to recognize bad news by the tone of the first syllable. Mr. Davidson, this is Jennifer from Fidelity Investments. We need to verify a recent withdrawal from your 401 account. My fingers stopped moving across the keyboard. I'd been managing retirement accounts for 2 decades, both my own and my clients'. I knew exactly what was in mine, down to the penny, $247,000, carefully accumulated through disciplined contributions and strategic investment choices. I hadn't touched it. I'm sorry, what withdrawal? A hardship withdrawal was processed yesterday for $45,000. The request cited immediate financial need due to divorce proceedings. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. I was going through a divorce, yes, but I had specifically avoided touching retirement funds. My ex-wife had her own substantial 401, and our settlement was proceeding smoothly through mediation. No hardship withdrawal was necessary or requested. Can you tell me exactly how this request was submitted? Jennifer's voice became careful, professional. The documentation appears to be in order. We have signed forms, copies of legal proceedings, and verification of identity. However, given the amount, we wanted to confirm directly with you. I was already pulling up my Fidelity account online. The numbers on the screen made my vision blur for a moment. Balance, $202,000. Recent activity, $45,000 withdrawal, processed yesterday at 3:47 p.m. I need copies of all documentation immediately. Email everything to this address. I gave her my secure email, and I need this investigated as potential fraud. After hanging up, I sat in the silence of my office, listening to the clock tick on the wall. In 23 years of financial planning, I'd seen every type of retirement fraud imaginable. Identity theft, forged signatures, family members with access to personal information. The patterns were always the same. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Victoria. So excited. First day of renovation starts tomorrow. The studio is going to be amazing. I stared at the message for a long moment, then forwarded it to my personal email with a timestamp. Old habits from my compliance days. Document everything. The documentation from Fidelity arrived within an hour. I opened each PDF with the methodical precision of someone who'd reviewed thousands of financial documents. The signature on the hardship withdrawal form was a decent forgery of mine, but not perfect. The supporting documents included copies of my divorce papers, which were public record, and a financial hardship affidavit claiming immediate need for legal fees. What made my blood run cold was the beneficiary information. The check had been issued to Victoria Davidson Financial Consulting LC, a business entity I'd never heard of, but which shared my sister's name and my profession. I called my mother. David, how wonderful to hear from you. I was just telling Mrs. Peterson about Victoria's new yoga studio. You should see the space she found. Mom, I need to ask you something directly. Did Victoria take money from my retirement account? A pause. Then her voice shifted to that careful tone she used when she was about to justify something she knew was wrong. Well, honey, she needed help getting started. Following dreams requires sacrifice from everyone in the family. How much did she take? It wasn't taking, David. It was borrowing. She's going to pay you back once the studio is profitable. You know how hard it's been for her since the divorce. Victoria had been divorced for 3 years. She'd received a substantial settlement and had been living rent-free in our childhood home since Mom and Dad moved to their retirement condo in Florida. Her hard times consisted of not wanting to work while she found herself. She withdrew $45,000 from my 401 without my permission. That's theft, Mom. Don't be so dramatic. Family helps family. Besides, you have plenty of money. Victoria is finally pursuing her passion. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that had nothing to do with the money and everything to do with the casual dismissal. The assumption that my financial security was communal property. I understand, I said quietly. I knew you'd see reason. You're such a good brother. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair and looked out the window at the oak tree in my backyard. 23 years ago, I'd started my career as a junior compliance officer at a regional bank. I worked my way up through risk management, corporate investigations, and eventually into private consulting. I specialized in financial fraud detection and regulatory compliance. My clients paid me $300 an hour to catch people who did exactly what Victoria had just done. I opened a new file on my computer and labeled it Davidson Family Matter. Then I began documenting everything the way I taught Fortune 500 companies to protect themselves from internal theft. The first step was understanding the scope. I called Fidelity back and requested a complete audit trail of the withdrawal. As the account holder, I had the right to every piece of documentation, every email, every phone call log related to the transaction. The second step was checking my credit reports. If Victoria had accessed my 401, she might have tried other accounts. I pulled reports from all three bureaus and reviewed every line item. Clean, except for a new business credit card inquiry from last month that I didn't recognize. The third step was calling my attorney. David, good to hear from you. How's the divorce proceeding? Actually, Mark, I need your help with a different matter. Someone used my identity to withdraw money from my retirement account. I explained the situation while Mark took notes. 20 years of working together had taught him to trust my instincts about financial irregularities. The good news is that 401 fraud is a federal crime. The bad news is that family member cases can be complicated. What do you want to do? I want to recover my money and ensure this doesn't happen again, even if it means criminal charges against your sister. I thought about my mother's voice, the casual assumption that my life's work was available for Victoria's whims. Especially then. I drove to the yoga studio that afternoon. It was in a trendy part of downtown, a converted warehouse space with high ceilings and industrial windows. A banner hung across the front. Serenity Yoga Studio. Opening soon. Through the windows, I could see workers installing bamboo flooring. Victoria stood in the center of the space, gesturing animatedly at a contractor. She looked happy, animated in a way I hadn't seen in years. For a moment, I felt the familiar tug of family loyalty, the protective instinct that had made me cover her credit card payments in college, co-sign her first apartment lease, lend her money for her first divorce attorney. Then I remembered the forged signature on my retirement withdrawal form, and the feeling passed. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my car and called the number on the construction company's truck. Yeah, Davidson Project. We're about 3 weeks into build-out, should be finished by the end of the month. What's the total budget for the renovation? Lady paid us $45,000 upfront for materials and labor. High-end job, custom everything. I thanked him and hung up. $45,000, the exact amount of my retirement withdrawal. That evening my phone rang, Victoria probably ready to share her excitement about the studio. David, you should come see the space. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I'm thinking of having a family preview before the grand opening. Sounds like you've put a lot of money into it. Well, you know how it is. You have to invest in your dreams. I've been saving up for this for years. Where did the money come from, Victoria? A pause. What do you mean? I mean, where did you get $45,000 for the renovation? Her voice became defensive. I've been working saving up. Why? Really? Because I just found out that someone withdrew exactly that amount from my 401 yesterday. Silence. Then, David, I can explain. I'm listening. It was just a loan. Mom said you wouldn't mind. I'm going to pay you back as soon as the studio starts making money. You forged my signature on federal financial documents. I didn't forge anything. I used some old forms you'd left at Mom's house. From when you helped me with my business plan last year. I remembered those forms. I'd helped her draft paperwork for a consulting business that never materialized. She kept copies with my signature for reference. Victoria, what you did is a federal crime. Don't be so dramatic. It's family money. We help each other. It's my retirement money that I earned over 23 years. Her voice hardened. You're being selfish. You have plenty of money. This is my one chance to build something meaningful. By stealing from me. It's not stealing. It's borrowing. God, David, you sound just like Robert. Robert was her ex-husband, a cautious accountant but grown tired of funding her entrepreneurial ventures. I felt the conversation sliding into familiar territory, Victoria's needs versus everyone else's selfishness. her dreams versus other people's limitations. I understand your position, I said calmly. I knew you'd come around. You're the only one in this family who's ever really supported me. After hanging up, I spent the rest of the evening reviewing federal statutes related to retirement account fraud. The penalties were severe, up to 5 years in prison, substantial fines, and complete restitution. The IRS took these cases seriously because retirement fraud affected the integrity of the entire system. More importantly, the unauthorized withdrawal had triggered a mandatory audit of my account. Even if I wanted to let this slide, the investigation was already in motion. My phone buzzed with another text from Victoria. "Thank you for being understanding. I love you." I didn't reply. The next morning, I called my employer's HR department. As a financial consultant, I was required to report any potential conflicts of interest or legal issues that might affect my work. A family member committing a federal crime definitely qualified. "David, this is serious. You need to file a formal report with the compliance department." "I understand. I wanted to give you advance notice before this becomes official." Within an hour, I had an email from the chief compliance officer requesting a meeting. By noon, I was sitting in a conference room explaining how my sister had committed 401 fraud. "The company will support any legal action you need to take. This kind of thing reflects on all of us." That afternoon, I received a call from an IRS investigator. "Mr. Davidson, we've received a fraud report regarding your retirement account. We'd like to schedule an interview to discuss the details." "Of course. What information do you need?" "Everything: documentation, communications, timeline of events. This appears to be a straightforward case of identity theft and retirement fraud." I spent 2 hours that day walking the investigator through every detail: the forged signatures, the fake business entity, the family pressure to understand that theft was actually borrowing. By Friday, I had a case number and a timeline. The IRS would complete their investigation within 30 days. Victoria would be contacted for an interview. Criminal charges were likely. That weekend, my mother called. "David, what have you done?" "Victoria is beside herself. She says you reported her to the government." "I reported a crime to the appropriate authorities." "She's family. You don't turn family over to the government." "She stole $45,000 from my retirement account, Mom." "That's not a family disagreement. That's a federal crime." "You're being vindictive. This is about more than money." She was right. It was about more than money. It was about the assumption that my life's work was communal property, that my financial security was less important than Victoria's latest venture, that I was supposed to smile and enable theft because we shared DNA. "You're right," I said. "It is about more than money." "Then drop the charges. Work this out like adults." "The charges aren't mine to drop. The IRS doesn't care about family dynamics. You could have talked to them first. Explained that it was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was identity theft and fraud." My mother's voice turned cold. "You always were the selfish one. Even as a child, you never shared." I thought about the years of loans to Victoria that were never repaid, the credit cards I co-signed, the business ventures I funded, the family dinners where my success was dismissed as luck, while Victoria's failures were treated as noble attempts. "I understand your perspective," I said calmly. "Do you?" "Because Victoria might go to prison because of you. Victoria might go to prison because of Victoria." The following Monday, Victoria called. Her voice was different, smaller, scared. "David, I just got a call from some IRS investigator. They want to meet with me." "I'm not surprised." "Can't you call them off? Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding. You stole my money. I was going to pay you back." "With what money?" "The yoga studio that's funded with my retirement account." Silence. Then, "Please, David, I'm scared." For a moment, I felt the old familiar pull, the protective older brother who'd always fix Victoria's problems. But then I thought about the casual dismissal, the assumption that I'd just absorbed this loss because we're family. "You should be scared. What you did is serious. I could lose everything." "You lost everything the moment you decided to steal from me." She started crying. "I just wanted something of my own. Something that wasn't connected to Robert or Mom and Dad or anyone else. I thought you'd understand." "I understand wanting independence. I don't understand theft." "It wasn't theft. It was family." No, Victoria, family would have asked. Family would have respected my right to say no. What you did was calculate that it was easier to steal than to risk rejection. The line went quiet, except for her crying. The investigator wants to know about my business accounts, my assets, everything. They're treating me like a criminal. You are a criminal. The words hung in the air between us. 20 years of enabling, of excusing, of treating Victoria's choices as everyone else's responsibility to fix, condensed into 4 words. I hate you, she whispered. I know. The investigation moved quickly. Victoria's newly created LLC had no legitimate business history. The forged signatures were easily detected through handwriting analysis. The timeline showed clear premeditation. She'd established the business entity 2 weeks before submitting the withdrawal request. Most damaging was her complete inability to explain how she'd obtained my personal financial information, my social security number, and copies of my legal documents. The evidence pointed to systematic identity theft. My attorney called with updates every few days. They found she'd been collecting your personal information for months. Bank statements from your old room at your parents' house, copies of tax returns, even your passport information. How long has she been planning this? Based on the paper trail, at least 6 months. This wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. The yoga studio construction stopped in the 3rd week. I drove by and saw the space sitting empty, half-finished bamboo floors and exposed electrical work. A notice was taped to the door. Project suspended pending resolution of payment disputes. Victoria called that evening. They froze my accounts. All of them. I can't pay the contractors, can't pay rent, can't pay anything. That's what happens when you're under federal investigation for fraud. You did this to me. No, Victoria, you did this to yourself. I'm going to lose the studio, lose everything. You never had the studio. You built it with stolen money. It wasn't stolen. It was family money. Even facing federal charges, she couldn't admit what she'd done. In her mind, my retirement account was a family resource she'd been unfairly denied access to. The IRS is recommending criminal charges, I said quietly. What does that mean? It means you're probably going to prison. Silence. Then, how can you do this to your own sister? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm protecting myself from you. The formal charges came down 6 weeks later. Wire fraud, identity theft, and illegal access to retirement accounts. The recommended sentence was 18 months to 3 years, plus full restitution and penalties. My mother called, sobbing. She's going to prison because of you. Your own sister. She's going to prison because she committed federal crimes. You could have handled this privately, worked something out. She stole $45,000 from my retirement account, Mom. What exactly should I have worked out? You could have given her a loan, helped her legitimately. She never asked for a loan. She calculated that theft was easier than honesty. You're destroying this family. I thought about that. Was I destroying the family, or was I finally refusing to enable the family's dysfunction? Maybe the family needed destroying. The plea hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Victoria's attorney had negotiated 18 months in minimum security prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution of $47,000. The original amount plus penalties and interest. I wasn't required to attend, but I went anyway. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched my sister stand before a federal judge and admit to wire fraud. Ms. Davidson, do you understand that by accepting this plea agreement, you are admitting to deliberately deceiving financial institutions to obtain money that didn't belong to you? Yes, Your Honor. And do you understand the serious nature of these charges and their impact on the victim? Victoria glanced back at me. For a moment, our eyes met across the courtroom. Yes, Your Honor. Outside the courthouse, she approached me. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Are you, or are you sorry you got caught? She considered the question. Both, I think. That's honest. I never thought it would go this far. I thought you'd be angry, but I thought you'd eventually understand. Understand what? That I needed this. That I've never had anything that was really mine. I looked at her, this person I'd spent 35 years trying to protect and enable. You're right, you've never had anything that was really yours. Because every time you had the chance to earn something, you chose to take from someone else instead. She nodded slowly. The yoga studio was beautiful. For 3 weeks, it was exactly what I dreamed of. It was built on theft. Dreams built on theft don't last. I know that now. The restitution payments started immediately, $1,200 per month, garnished directly from Victoria's wages at the customer service job she'd found after her professional reputation was destroyed. The money went directly into a new retirement account I'd opened, separate from my employer's plan. My mother stopped speaking to me entirely. My father called once, awkwardly, to say he understood my position, but hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive. I didn't feel like I needed to forgive anything. I felt like I finally learned the difference between family loyalty and enabling criminal behavior. 6 months later, I received a letter from Victoria. She was serving her sentence at a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania, working in the prison library and taking business classes. I'm learning about legitimate business practices, she wrote. Things I should have learned before I decided that stealing was easier than earning. I understand now why you couldn't just let this go. It wasn't about the money. It was about who I was becoming and whether anyone was going to stop me. She was right. It wasn't about the money. It was about the moment I realized that my family saw me as a resource to be exploited, rather than a person to be respected. Victoria would serve 14 months, get out on good behavior, and spend the next 4 years rebuilding her life. The restitution payments would continue for 3 more years after her release. I continued my consulting practice, working with companies to prevent exactly the kind of fraud my sister had committed. My divorce was finalized amicably. My ex-wife and I remained friends, bonded partly by the shared experience of having survived my family's dysfunction. On Victoria's release date, I received a text message. I'm out. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. Actions have consequences. Theft is theft, even between family members. Thank you for not enabling me to become worse than I already was. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, good luck. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. It wasn't reconciliation. It was acknowledgement that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to protect them from the consequences of their choices. My retirement account was fully restored within 18 months. I was 47 years old, with 24 years of financial planning experience and a clear understanding of the difference between family loyalty and personal boundaries. I learned that dreams require sacrifice, just as my mother had said. But the sacrifice should come from the dreamer, not be stolen from someone else.